1980s saw an enormous rise in the use of single lens reflex film cameras, and manufacturers were keen to grow. And it was interesting to note that some of the names of the past came into being again. One of those names being Contacts. Now, Contacts had with Zeiss made some fantastic cameras in the 50s, and they had an agreement with Yashica, and Yashica produced some fantastic cameras, and some of them were badged Contacts in the 1980s. Now, these were quite expensive cameras, where the Yashica were cheaper, and the Yashica shared the same lens mount, so you could use the Zeiss lenses on a Yashica. And this connection with Contact's name actually gave Yashica a little bit of prestige, you could say. And the Yashica camera was very popular because it was good value. It was quite a lot cheaper. And the one I'm going to talk about is the FX-3, which is from about 1979. It was replaced by the FX-3 Super in 1984. You will notice this has a bright red body, and you think that's a bit not quite right. I'm going to start with the weak side of these cameras. The weak side of a lot of the Yashicas was the body covering. It soon disintegrates, and you can either buy online pre-cut replacements, or you can make your own. This camera I sort of picked up for not a lot of money, and it wasn't quite a state, so I did make my own covering. Could be a bit neater, but it's absolutely fine. Let's talk about the camera. We have from the start as I said, the Yashica Contacts mount. So there's quite a lot of lenses out there, and from my memory it's red dot to red dot. These cameras could have been made by the Casino company, we aren't sure, but it's moderately well made. It fits well in the hand. We have shutter speeds on this camera up to 1,000th of a second, and it's very much of that manual camera of the late 70s. We don't have a needle in the middle, we have a small LED, and the LED is actually controlled, the meter is controlled not by the lever coming out, which were on some other Yashicas, not by half pressing the button, but by pressing this button here. And I quite like this feature because it's more convenient, I find, than pulling the lever out or even pressing. It actually works very well, and it basically alter the aperture until, so you select your shutter speed, normally 125, and then pressing the button you alter the aperture until you get the green in the middle. I say green, yeah, we've got a red plus, a minus in red, and a green in the middle. Focusing manually to, let me check there's no film in here, a vertical shutter, which seems very reliable. Apart from the covering, these cameras are very reliable, and they don't go for such a high price as the Contacts is and some of the other cameras. And if the meter isn't working, you can use them manually. They take two AG13 batteries which go down here. Let's see how I got on when I used the camera. I used the camera on the bright Sunday afternoon in an English churchyard, and I was really pleased with how the camera responded. We had a good range of shadows, and the meter, which I wasn't sure, appeared to be quite accurate. I liked the fact of I was talking earlier about the button on the back. At first sight it might seem a little bit unusual, but again it handles very well. The lens I was very surprised about, because it's a slightly bog standard 35 to 70mm, but you can see it's performing very well. Okay, it's closed down to, I would say, about f11 and in some cases f16. I'm using Forma 100, which I've developed with ID11 diluted 1:1 for about 10 minutes. Again, we got some really quite sharp shadows on this Sunday afternoon, but that makes for even more composition. Some people may find churchyards not the most conducive places to photograph, but they are very quiet, and you get, it's peaceful, and from a photographic point of view, I find it a good place to composition, and you as I said, it's a good place to test cameras. This was at Woodsford Church, which is in the heart of the Dorset countryside, and again, the exposure has worked well. The camera worked well. I enjoyed using this camera, and it will be very interesting. I've got a nice size planar lens, which I'm looking forward to putting on this camera and seeing how that lens performs. I've used the FX-3 Super before, and I must say the FX-3 did not disappoint. Many thanks for watching. Bye for now.